Hello. Hi everyone. Hello. Hi Lolly. How are you? Love already, thanks. Yeah, I'm good. I'm so tired. But good. Hi Boho Henna. So, I've been meaning to do this broadcast for a long time. So I figured I'd do a little bit tonight. I've had quite a few orders for my cones lately, so I wanted to help people to how to get the best out of it. So I'm going to do a few little things tonight and just show you what I do when I start up. So if you have a fresh cone, fantastic. If you have a frozen cone, it'll take 10-15 minutes to defrost from the freezer. If you're watching and you don't know me, I would only use natural henna. I wouldn't use chemical henna at all. It's really, really bad for you. So this is my natural cone. So this has been defrosted, but once it has defrosted, it needs to be squished. A lot of the ingredients in here are, oil and water and sugar and things, and when it freezes and then when it defrosts, it's going to separate in there. So before you use it each time, you're going to want to give it a good squidge to get that mixed up again. Otherwise, when you start to henna, it'll be all kind of watery in one part and then it'll be sort of firm in the next part. So give your cone a really good squish about and mix the layers back together again. Hi Bergamot, nice to see you back. The next thing that I would do, hi Hippie Chick, great to see you. The next thing that I would normally do is if you haven't had, hang on, I've got a pin somewhere, let me show you. Where's that pin? There it is. If you've had, when I roll my cones, I always roll the tip around a pin. So the hole is always a consistent size. So that when I'm hennaing, they're always going to get the same thickness in line. A lot of the time, when I put them in the freezer, I leave the pin in there. So that when I take the pin out, I have a nice clear tip. But with this one I didn't, so yeah, I just kind of threw it in the freezer with the tip open. So you'll get a natural kind of plug of henna dried up in there. So even though the inside is defrosted, you're gonna get like a plug in there. So what you can do is if you get a baby wipe and you kind of pinch around the tip and then pull back, you'll pull all of the dry kind of skanky henna out of the tip. That's one way. Another way is if you get some tissue or some paper and you can actually press the tip down and push out. And that will get all of the kind of the gunky, gross stuff out. So your tip should be clear. You've given it a good mix and you've got the gunk from the end. Yeah, I used to roll them closed because when I liked the thought of them being in the freezer with the tip closed. I used to roll them so tight that it was dangerous. They were so sharp. But then when I was snipping with the snippers, I wasn't being consistent with the size. So sometimes I'd have the hole huge and sometimes I'd have the hole tiny, and sometimes they'd be a little bit kind of diagonal, which isn't great. And it's just, that's a skill in itself, is trying to get the kind of the snippers to the right level. So I started to roll around a pin. Yeah. I started to roll around a pin and oh my goodness, it was just so much easier. So although it seems faffy in the beginning, it's so worth it. And if you do have any problems, you can snip a little bit off this, but I rarely have to do that. But you can see how, even when it's a bit blurry, let's see if I can focus in. I don't think I can. But the holes are, it's just the right size. So once I've squished and I've got kind of the gunk out of there, just a minute, small child, Gabby, get to bed please. Well, you have to go see Daddy, I'm just busy at the moment. Go on, I'll come up in a minute. Close the door please. Hi Joey. That was a small child not wanting to go to bed. Sorry about that. Alright, so now that the cone is ready, you're going to kind of want to warm... Hello, love. Hi, Henna Charm. We're just going back to basics of basics of basics, because I have some people who've bought cones and I just want to help them out to get good quality from the beginning. So when your cone is defrosted, every cone will act differently, so it's like when you pick up a pencil, you're not quite sure how the nib's going to react. So the best thing to do is kind of just doodle, basically. Get used to how the cone feels. Do some lines. Make sure you can see me. How I hold my cone is I hold it like I would a pencil. I hold it about 1 inch to 2 inches from the bottom, the tip bottom. Sometimes I hold the tip between my first finger and my middle finger. Sometimes I actually move that between my middle and my ring finger. It depends how I feel on the day, it depends, I don't know, I don't really think about it, but either way is fine, but just practice and see which one you like. And the squeezing power from the actual paste comes from the thumb, so you shouldn't have to squeeze with the fingers at all. It just comes from pressing on the thumb slightly and then the fingers draw. But like I say, everybody is different. I have my wrist on the table, so I pivot with my wrist bone, if you like, and that's how you get that kind of movement. Some people do like to use the cone and hold it right at the top here and have a really long nib here. I personally can't get along with that, but it's worth a try to see whether it suits your hand. I like it down here. So coming back in, what you need to do is just draw some lines, get used to how the cone flows. If the cone is still slightly chilled, the paste sometimes doesn't flow quite right. So it's, whether you're doodling on paper or people, it's really important to just kind of get the cone and the paste warmed up a little bit. So you can see my lines are kind of breaking in the middle. Sometimes that can be the paste is cold, and sometimes it can be that you're not pressing hard enough. Sometimes it can be that you're moving your hand too quick for the paste to stretch. So if you just do this a couple of times, even if you're with a client, it's important to just kind of get used to your cone. Once you've used your cone for a couple of lines, where you've got your thumb, the cone will actually naturally bend because of the heat from your thumb, and that because you're squeezing there. So it kind of merges to the shape of your hand as well, which makes for easy drawing. So the cone kind of warms up in that way, and the paste in the tip here between your fingers will warm up in that way as well. So when I'm drawing my lines, I try and avoid touching the board particularly, because if I kind of try and touch the board and draw a line, you see it kind of, I get like a skid, and you're not going to get that crisp line. So what I tend to try and do, and it does come with practice, is touch the board at the beginning, squeeze with your thumb slightly, and then lift up and keep squeezing, and it's almost like the paste is kind of dribbling out the end of your cone there. Can you see the difference between the drag and, like, it's called draping, and it just kind of falls out the end, and you're almost kind of running and stretching it across your paper or your skin. So that's a really good way to get some nice clean lines rather than kind of trying to sketch it and pull it across. So that's a good trick to kind of warm yourself up, warm your cone up, and just as a good drill as well. The harder you press with your thumb, the thicker the line will be. And the softer that you press with your thumb, the thinner the line will be. So that's a good thing to practice. Another thing I do to warm the cone up to see how the paste is acting. Sometimes when you freeze the cone, when it defrosts, they can act in different ways. Some powders thicken up to what you originally had it. Some powders thin down and get quite watery, so it's important to just check and see how yours is acted before you go and commit to skin. So I also do... Hi hippie chick, are you having trouble with your connection? You're kind of in and out like a yo-yo. So I'll do some couple of dots and then I'll do some larger dots. It can feel like a waste of paste, kind of doing these things beforehand, but any practice is not a waste of paste because you're practicing, it's all valuable. And these cones, they might seem small. Oh, somebody else said that yesterday, they can hear it but no picture. How strange. But no, these cones can seem small, but you can get a lot of designs from just, you know, like a 10 or a 15 gram cone. So don't feel like you have to hold back just because you're practicing. You need to really do some small dots and some big dots. When you do your dots, I find that putting the cone almost a 90-degree angle to the surface works best, rather than holding it on an angle like you're shading something. If you hold your cone right up, and don't move it around particularly, but just squeeze so that you get kind of a... Yeah, I like a smaller cone. This one's 10 grams. And that's just perfect for me. I used to make huge, great big long ones, but I had so much wastage, it was just pointless. So I'll do some great big dots. And you want to get them like really fat pancakes, you know, you want them quite rounded. If I do a dot and then bring my cone up towards the ceiling at the same time, if you see on the side, you get kind of this plop. And then the first ones that I did were kind of like not Maltesers, what they're called, minstrels. They're kind of the flat ones, whereas this is kind of like a Hershey's Kiss, which we don't want. You want them just to be nice and rounded, so almost do the dot from the bottom and the paste kind of rises up. So do some of those and kind of get used to it. I'm really happy with this now because the henna in this part of the cone is warming up with my fingers, so I'm really pleased with that. So I'm going to end this broadcast here because I think I'm having some technical difficulties. But do try all those even if you're a pro, just try them before you do any job, just to make sure that your cone's happy and you're happy with it and stuff. I'm going to try and sort my technical problems out and I will come back in 5. So please do come back and stick about with me. Thanks, you guys. And now I can't stop it. Hang on, let me try again.